Hey everyone, it's the end of the year. We're going to recap what the 2023 real estate market looked like. We'll take a look at what we think will happen in the 2024 real estate market. We'll dig into some numbers for each of the areas along the Oregon coast. So if you're thinking about buying a home in 2024 along the Oregon coast, you won't want to miss this video. All that starts now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel Living on the Oregon Coast. I'm your host, Seth Marchant, licensed broker in the state of Oregon. So 2023, what are some of the things that people were saying, particularly at the beginning of the year, and how did some of those things pan out? At the beginning of the year, there's a lot of talk about recessions. A lot of people were saying a recession would lead to a correction in home prices. We didn't see the recession come in 2023, and home prices throughout the country largely went up about 3 to 5%. That's going to be true for the most part along the Oregon coast and throughout Oregon. And at this point, most economists believe that we probably won't have a recession. Looks like we're in for a soft landing. Another thing we heard a lot over the past year and just kind of before that was the ending of the forbearance program. So people that did not have to pay their mortgage for some period of time, those programs ending, people now having to pay their mortgages. But there were close to 8 million homes that entered that program. There's only about 200,000 of those left, and 10% is the magic number in order to have enough equity to sell your home. So as long as a homeowner has at least 10% equity in their property, they're not going to have to usually go into foreclosure. And in 2023 and going into 2024, anybody that bought their home, say before 2021, especially before 2020, is going to have a significant amount of equity. Going to be a lot different than the last big crash that we saw in 07, 08, 09. A lot of those people did not have equity. They didn't see the 20% year over year gains that people that bought in 2019, 2020, 21 did. One thing we've been hearing a lot, and you still hear quite a bit online, so this probably isn't going to go away anytime soon, and that is that the STRs, the short-term rental market, is really oversaturated. There are a lot of people that bought vacation rentals, homes that they plan to rent out for 30 days or less in 2020, 2021. Airbnb, VRBO, these things became very popular. And so there's a lot of people that enter the market that maybe don't have a whole lot of experience renting. And for some of those people that bought around the top in 2021 or just past that, especially when rates were starting to go up, the numbers might not pencil for the way that they initially thought when they set out to buy that investment property. In other words, the deal wasn't quite as good. They didn't get the cap rate that they want. They're not getting the type of yield that they want. So the theory, and I see this a lot online too. I see people saying this. I see some people that have already lost money or claim to have lost money on short-term vacation rentals, but the problem is that this is a very, very small part of the market. And you hear about those institutional investors, right? Those big, huge companies that are buying up all the homes, supposedly. Well, those investors, anybody that has 10 plus homes, which is considered a large or an institutional investor, make up less than 1% of the market. So even if there's some of the small mom and pops out there that are struggling, maybe not quite making numbers work, and even some of these institutional investors offloading properties, it's just not enough of the market to actually give us enough inventory to where it's actually going to shift things into a buyer's market. Now, we've heard about unemployment as well. We've heard that there's reasons why unemployment might rise significantly, but we are at historically low unemployment rates. You know, that's a reason why we could see a lot more inventory coming to market is if enough people lose their job, they can't afford their mortgage, they have to sell. Similar to the crash that we had in 07 or 08, people had a particular reason why they had to sell. They had no choice. And that might give us enough inventory where it actually floods the market to where prices actually go down a little bit, but we're not seeing that either. So mortgage rates, that's been the big talk for a long time, for at least a couple of years now. We heard a couple of years ago in 2021 that when rates were at 3%, if they got to 5 or 6%, we would expect the market to crash. Well, they got to 8% and the market still did not crash or correct. Some people use that terminology, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. Some of the articles that are most recently published about forecasting for 2024, you see some of the terminology of the correction, but we have not quite seen it in the numbers. And anecdotally, for us brokers on the ground, we're still seeing enough competition where there's actually multiple offer situations, and sometimes people are still losing out to multiple offers or having to adjust their offer and compete with multiple offers. So it's still a very much competitive market, even at 8%. There were people that were saying that student loans and people having to go back to pay back their student loans would hurt demand. That time has now since come, and we haven't seen that yet. In fact, millennials made up the largest buyer pool in 2022 and likely will be close to the largest, if not the largest, in 2023. So another thing to note too, if we have a recession, it doesn't necessarily mean that home prices will go down. That crash that we had in 07, 08, there were a lot of different things working together there. Big one being people having a mortgage they couldn't afford, or in some cases multiple mortgages that they could not afford. But just remember, if we do see a recession, it doesn't necessarily mean that home prices are going to go down. This is data from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, so data from the government. This is their projection. They forecast that home prices will go up 2.35% next year, 2.7% after that, 3.6%, 3.67 after that, 4, and then 4.15, hopefully beating out inflation. Here's something that here's some data I haven't shown actually recently on the channel that might be interesting for a lot of people here, because so many people moving to the Oregon coast are relocating from other parts of the country. And if you're curious what these things have done over the decades, going back to 1991, what sections, what parts of the country have appreciated the most. And as you can see, the Pacific, or the Pacific Northwest, has appreciated 351%, only to be beat out by the mountain states. So let's go over some data. These are the northern counties. This would be Clatsop County, Tillamook County, and Lincoln County. All three grouped together. The big thing that we look at is inventory. Inventory largely shapes, what the market is like, and that's been kind of the dominating story for the past few years, is low inventory, not enough homes for sale, which creates an extremely competitive market for the buyers. As we see, the last time the numbers came out in October, we were at the highest inventory that we've seen since the pandemic. Ticked slightly down, which you would expect typically in the wintertime. Inventory typically will tick down in the wintertime as people prepare for the holidays, and anybody that's listing their home in the fall time that doesn't go under contract as you come into the holidays, sometimes they'll withdraw their property and come back in the springtime, whether it's just because the market is better or people just don't want to move in the holidays. But as you can see in years past, that hasn't always been the case. This has largely been due to interest rates. We've seen interest rates hit kind of their highs or make their biggest jumps around late summer, fall time, winter time. So interest rates are really are the things that have really driven the market aside from inventory. So whenever rates go up, sales tend to go down. So right now with 4.3 months of inventory, that means it would take 4.3 months to sell all the homes on the market if nothing else came to the market. A balanced market is typically 3 to 6 months, so we're really getting close to a balanced market. Real estate is always going to be local. One thing that's really dominated the story for 2023 is new listings have been way down. Even though inventory has been picking up, it's a lot of inventory that's been sitting on the market. We're not seeing a whole lot of new listings. New listings from November of 2023 to the previous month ticked down 21%. Again, in the wintertime, that is typically normal. Not a lot of people bringing their home to the market in the wintertime. But year over year, 2023 versus 2022, down 8.8%. Now, closed sales, as you can see on the North Coast, is up 5.8% year over year. And that's something that we're going to look for in 2023. Transactions are way down for something we're going to look for 2024, rather. Transactions are way down for 2023. And some of the indicators we're seeing now are pointing to more transactions for 2024. We'll get into some of that data and a few of the articles that recently came out about that here in just a moment. Average sale price, Northern Oregon coast, looking at mid to higher fives. Just south of that, the next big town along the Oregon coast you're going to find is going to be Florence, although this is Lane County, which also includes Eugene. A couple 100,000 people in Eugene. There's about 10,000 people in Florence over here on the coast. So this and the county just to the south of it, which is Douglas County. These two counties don't very accurately portray the coast because a lot of their population is inland. For Douglas County, just to the south here, the kind of the big town along the coast is Reedsport, just a couple thousand people there, but they do have Roseburg inland. So these numbers are more accurately going to reflect numbers inland. more so than what Florence might actually look like, but give you a little bit of an idea. So you would expect Florence to have a little bit less inventory than the northern Oregon coast counties. Now, one thing we're starting to see this in some places, year over year, November 23 to 2022, new listings up 23%. That's the big thing that people are looking for in 2024, like I mentioned, is new listings. Are new listings going to come to the market? That's what everybody's wondering. Sales are slightly down, but we'll expect sales to follow with new listings if they do continue to come to the market. All right, average sale price for Florence over the past 4 months, high 400s, 472 to 474. And one thing I should note about the northern coastal counties, that this number right here around 500, that's probably more typical for most of the towns along the northern Oregon coast. You do have a couple towns like Cannon Beach and Manzanita, which are really propping up those averages. Some of the most expensive real estate along the Oregon coast is in those areas, but a lot of places along the northern counties, you're going to find that average probably right around 500. All right, Coos County, which is one of the most inexpensive counties in Oregon and in the region, inventory has now hit its highest since the pandemic at 4.8 months of inventory. New listings actually ticked up from last month, 4.4%, and have ticked up from last year, 13.3%. Now, if we combine those new listings with some lower rates, and we'll get into rates here in just a moment, I expect the market to get really competitive in Coos County. Their average sale price over the past 12 months, $365 12 months ago, $386 more recently. Again, Coos County, Coos Bay, North Bend area, going to be about the most inexpensive real estate you can find along the Oregon coast. All right, finally, Curry County, which is where Gold Beach and most notably Brookings is. Look at this number. This would be the biggest number that we'll look at. 9.8 months of inventory, really ticked up from October. And here's the thing, new listings, November of 2023 versus October of 2023, down 39.6%. So it's not like a bunch of new listings came to the market. Brookings has really got some inventory that's starting to sit there, which signals a lot of opportunity for buyers to get a really good deal. Average sales price $465,000 versus $443,000. And why is Brookings why is this inventory building up so much? Why are the prices maybe not as high as the northern Oregon coast? Well, Brookings actually is one of the most desirable places to retire. So it is a very, very popular place. In fact, on our channel, Living on the Oregon Coast, it's one of our most searched terms. So we know there's a lot of people really interested in Brookings. It's the mild, temperate weather that draws a lot of people there. It's really a great town. It's got what most people are going to need to retire there. Hospital's half an hour away. You do have enough shopping and restaurants to satisfy most people. There's a VA hospital there too, right in town. The major hospital is about 30 minutes to the north in Gold Beach. Coming from like a big area, big market, a Bay Area, LA, something like that. I will say that some of the major hospitals along the Oregon coast, some of the specialists, the wait time for some of that stuff is a little bit longer, so retirees know. But Brookings really is a great place. So these numbers, if you're not familiar with Brookings, don't let some of these numbers fool you into thinking this is not a desirable place for people to live. All right, so some of the predictions for 2024, I'm going to go through a couple of different people's predictions. And the reason why I want to highlight some of these things is because you're going to find pretty big variation in these predictions. And of course, these are all supposed to be experts, right? But the real estate market is very, very difficult to predict. And for that reason, you're going to see a lot of different forecasts. So a few things that Zillow predicts: more homes will hit the market as soon as homeowners accept that mortgage rates aren't falling anytime soon. They call that the golden handcuffs. Over half this country has an interest rate at 3% or lower, and those people don't want to trade their 3% rate for a 6 or a 7% rate. If you ever compared those numbers, it makes a big difference in your mortgage payment. So there's a lot of sellers right now holding out because they think that rates are going to go down, and if they don't have to trade 3 for 6%, they won't. So in this case, Zillow thinks that some of these people will start to give in and just go ahead and list anyways. All right, home buying costs will level off, giving hopefully buyers a chance to catch up. Affordability is at an all-time low. In the state of Oregon, you have to make on average, I think it's something like $136,000 to afford an average home. But I don't expect home prices will go down, but rates may. Zillow thinks the new starter home will be a single-family rental, so they're saying a lot of households will continue to be priced out of the market, and for single-family rentals, they will continue to increase next year as families look for more affordable options. And by the way, Zillow was predicting home values were going to go up like 5 or 6% for 2024 in the middle of 2023. It was like June or July. And now Zillow, their latest forecast calls for home values to hold steady until 2024, falling 0.2%. Real quick, we'll see what Forbes says for 2024. They say that 2023 was a demoralizing year for many aspiring home buyers. However, 2024 may be a better year to purchase. When will the housing market recover? Well, for the housing market to recover, several conditions must unfold. For the best possible outcome, we need to first see inventories of homes for sale turn considerably higher. And of course, interest rates need to cool off, according to Forbes. Housing inventory forecast for 2024. Don't expect to see a meaningful increase in supply of existing homes for sale until mortgage rates are back down in the 5% range. So probably not in 2024, says Rick Sharga, founder and CEO of CJ Patrick Company. As 2024 unfolds, we start to see signs of increased activity in both existing and new home sales, accompanied by a boost in active building, contributing to housing starts. And then will the housing market crash in 2024? Despite some areas seeing price declines, the likelihood of housing crash, a rapid drop in unsustainably high home prices due to waning demand remains low. Experts point out today's homeowners stand on much more secure footing than those coming out of the 2008 financial crisis, with many borrowers having positive home equity, like I mentioned before. All right, how about National Association of Realtors? NAR predicts 4.71 million existing home sales in 2024. That would be up 13.5% from 4.1 million anticipated in 2023. So NAR thinks we are going to have a significant jump in home sales. Annual median home prices are expected to remain largely unchanged at the national level in 2024 for the second straight year, modestly improving affordability from rising income. So National Association essentially expects the market to be slightly better than it was last year, with sales going up and home values slightly going up. All right, how about Morgan Stanley? What does Morgan Stanley think? The home price correction, which began in the U.S. after the summer of 2022, is not quite over yet. According to Morgan Stanley, which expects prices across the country to fall by 3% next year, according to its latest forecast model. After reaching its peak in June of 2022, home prices in the U.S. dropped for the 7 months as demand faltered. In May, home prices reached a new peak and were 0.7% higher than the previous record in June of 2022, even as mortgage rates remained high. But Morgan Stanley said the housing correction will likely continue next year. Again, sometimes you see those words, correction. Homes are not down year over year, especially if you go back 2 years ago. Probably find some places where they did go down year over year in some very speculative markets like Phoenix, Idaho, Austin. And back in August, Morgan Stanley, one of the world's biggest names in investment banking, had predicted that housing prices would slip 2% next year. In October, it revised its own expectations, saying that housing prices could drop as much as 5% next year. So it's funny to see that contrast between Morgan Stanley and NAR. Of course, there's going to be some bias in there. You know, National Association of Realtors. A lot of people in the real estate industry are very optimistic. At least I can say anecdotally, a lot of people that I know are very optimistic about the real estate market next year. So it's funny to see some of these contrasts. Again, depending on what it is that you're reading, it's really going to shape a lot of different views and what the market's been like over the past year and what to expect for 2024. All right, so how about PR Newswire says, 2024 housing forecast, housing affordability finally begins to turn around. Buyers will finally see lower prices, negative 1.7 and mortgage rates of 6.8 on average, but may scramble to find inventory down 14% as current owners happy with low mortgage rates and pandemic home purchases stay put. So this says home prices to ease slightly and drop by 1.7%, rents to drop by 0.2%, and negative 14% year-over-year drop in inventory. So if you contrast this again with National Association of Realtors, we're not going to have an extra 13.5% additional sales if we have a negative 14% year-over-year drop in inventory. So a lot of conflicting messages. And they think that even though inventory will drop, that home sales will remain steady from the previous year. Now, one thing to note interest rates right now. Interest rates have gone down, as you can see from this graph. This is looking back about 3 years. They've gone down about as fast recently as they have gone down in the past 3 years. We're now looking at high sixes, and like I said, a lot of people very optimistic about real estate in 2024. Well, the funny thing is, just go back to last year in 2023. If you would have looked at last year, rates were pretty close to the same, about mid sixes, not too far off of where they are now, yet last year people were very pessimistic about 2023. So it's funny to see that contrast. I think it's more the sense as to where things are trending. People feel like rates are trending down, whereas that wasn't the case. We really weren't sure last year what rates were going to do when they sat in the mid sixes, and mid sixes felt so high coming off of threes from a year and a half previous to that. So the optimism was not nearly what it was last year as it is this year. All right, so I hope that gives you a clearer overview of the real estate market. Again, my name is Seth Marchant, licensed broker in the state of Oregon. I've helped a lot of people relocate to the Oregon coast, whether retiring from somewhere in Oregon or coming from outside of the state. If you'd like to get in touch, if you have questions, I invite you to call, text, email. Find all of our contact information below. You can hit that QR code if you're watching from TV. That'll take you to our website where you can find all of our contact information. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure and subscribe. If you want to know what it's like to eat, sleep, play, all the pros and cons of living on the Oregon coast, hit that subscribe button. We've got over 100 videos that cover pretty much every question you could have about living on the Oregon coast. And if this video helped you, give me a thumbs up, lets me know I'm doing a good job, and feel free to comment below and we'll reply back. Until next time, take care, everyone.